Mi'kmaq, the ancestral Alaska territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Welcome for those in the gallery, our staff, Jeff Ridley, Helen. This is joined by our municipal advisor, Jason Hahn. Good evening, Jason. We have one regret from Councillor Lutz. Everyone else is in order. So we'll move to number 3 and looking for approval or changes to the agenda. Councillor Osborne.
Just like to make an addition under 9 at the 9B under business. Combined September meeting for September 19th.
Good, thank you. With that, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion that we accept the agenda as amended for our combined session of August the 15th, 2024.
Moved by Councillor Osborne, a second, please.
Second.
Second, Deputy Mayor Chapman. Discussion on the motion.
Question.
Question has been called. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. Looking for disclosure of interest on the agenda items. Okay, hearing none. Moving to item number 5. And that's the approval of minutes for July 25th, 24. Before I ask for that motion, is there any changes needed? Hearing none. Or changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the motion to approve coming out of camera, it should be Councillor Lutz instead of Councillor Rogers Lang. And sorry, and up top, it should be Councillor Rogers Lang, not just Councillor Lang. As well. Sorry, I thought I caught them all.
Anybody else? Okay, with that, have a motion, please.
I'll make that motion that we accept the minutes for our combined meeting of July 25th, 2024 as amended.
Moved by Councillor Osborne, second, please.
Second.
Second by Councillor Lang. Discussion on the motion. Question has been called. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. We have no announcements or proclamations. Item number 7, and we have 2 presentations tonight. The first is by MNP Financial Services, and we're joined by Darren Sichon. Good evening, sir. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear everything okay?
I can hear everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Is the Zoom working?
Yes.
Okay.
We good?
We are good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here this evening. I believe everyone should have a copy of the financial statements in their package with them. So I'm just going to cover the sort of the high level contents of the consolidated financial statements. So we did meet with the audit committee and reviewed these in more depth. So for today, it's very much a high level review. So the statements are prepared under public sector accounting standards. They combine both or all of the general operating capital funds, as well as the water operating and capital funds and your reserve fund. So as you move to the numbers, I guess, the consolidated statement of financial position, here you'll see some pretty significant increase in a number of areas. I don't have page numbers for what it's page 2 of the consolidated statements is what I'm looking at. I'm not sure what it is in your package. So the statement of financial position shows the financial assets and liabilities of the town. You will see that there's a significant change to a number of areas, one being first and foremost your accumulated surplus position. So that is increased by $6.2 million during the year. And so very much a positive year, largely driven by the contributed capital that you received during the fiscal period ending March 31st, 24. You also will note that at the end of March, there was just shy of $6 million of cash, 5.981 million in cash. That's largely a timing issue or a timing matter, because if you look in your deferred revenue under financial liabilities, that is $2.4 million higher. So what that means is at the end of March, you received funding for which you had not yet spent, but was committed for certain projects. And that's largely your municipal capital growth fund, which was at the end of March. There was no new debt nor were there any repayment there were no new debt. Repayments were made as scheduled. Lots of activity in your capital group down under your non-financial assets. 6.3 million in new additions during the year. 540,000 of amortization. And 4.5 of that was the contributed capital that has increased your tangible assets during the year.
Are you still on the same page?
Yes.
Just because you're bouncing and I'm sorry, I can't follow you.
I am bouncing. I'm trying to tie it together. I'm not going to go through every line. We did that at audit committee. So I'm just really trying to highlight for you the major numbers. Is there any specific questions you would have on that page?
So when you talked about the deferred revenue, where did you find that? I see it in the statements, but then you talked about a note. Which note were you talking about?
No, the deferred revenue of 2.9 million was the main contributor to why your cash and cash equivalent position is so significantly higher.
Okay.
There is no note.
Okay, so what is that from? Do you know?
Well, the Municipal Capital Growth Fund is the main piece of that. I believe at the end of March, it was 2.5 million. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the tangible capital assets that grew by $5.8 million net, 6.3 million of new capital, of which 4.5 of that was contributed, and the remainder being purchased, and 540,000 of regular amortization. On the next page, your statement of financial activities. So here you see your revenues and your expenses. You note the annual surplus for the year is 6.2 million. Under public sector accounting standards, what you see is capital grants being recorded as revenue all at once. So the big capital grant that you would see there would be the ICIP on the Riverside. So that would be the major contributor there. And then your capital, contributed capital of 4.5 million. So if you looked and you sort of removed that and you looked at it based on a budget, you did exceed your budget, largely because of the increases in taxes driven. And all of these areas have more information provided for you in the schedules. So you can see that in the back of your financials. But you'll see the major areas of increase would be taxes. And there it's commercial, indeed transfer tax continues to be higher than budgeted. As well, during the year, the interest revenue that you earned on the cash was significantly higher than it was last year, as well as what you budgeted, and largely because of the balance of cash that you have, as well as, of course, the interest rates being much better than they have been over the last number of years. On the expense side, your expense total for the year, 3.296 million compared to your budget of 2.6 million. So that came in over your budget. And again, the details of that are in the schedules. Your surplus at the end of the year is 18,118,389, and that's made up of all of those fund balances that we talked about. So your operating fund, your capital fund, your water, as well as your reserves. The reserve balance that makes up that is $2.6 million. Is your total reserve funding for at the end of 2024. And most of that is sitting in your special operating reserve. So $1.8 million of your surplus is in your special operating reserve. And that is provided to you in a schedule at the back of your financials. So overall, what I would say is there's a lot of positive things here. As I flip back to the statement of financial position, so the assets and the liabilities, there's two kind of key indicators that you would look at. One being your surplus position, which is very strong. It grew quite a bit. And the second would be your net financial asset position. And this is basically your liquidity. So that is a measure that is looked at under public sector standards to see the liquidity strength of the town. And you'll see at the end of March, it was 2.2 million, up from 1.8 last year. So that is a positive result as well. So all the financial indicators here would look to be very positive. Any additional questions that you might have on the financials? As I mentioned, we went into a lot of detail in the notes of the financial statements as well as the schedules, but I just wanted to touch on some of the larger things for council here to review.
Any questions, council?
I have some questions, but I don't know if he's gonna go further in or if we.
I understand this is a high level overview, is that correct?
Yep.
So is this the end of his presentation?
Yes, it is so.
Okay. So I do have a couple of questions. One's on, it's our page 15. I don't know what page it is for you, sorry. It's regarding the transfers to provincial boards and commissions. It still shows the housing contribution, but I believe that we don't do that any longer. So it's like the $63,000 there. 63,052.
Referring to the regional housing authority.
Yeah. Because the province removed housing. Is that right?
Did they last year, or is it this coming
I think
fiscal year?
well, I think they did it in September and it was retroactive. But it
This
was
is their last year.
Council, Mr. Vaughn's here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so
perfect.
as part of the service exchange,
Yeah.
the notice of loss payments,
Right.
very specific to notice of loss, anything else isn't part of this.
Mm.
Is removed in this fiscal forward. So we're in fiscal 24-25.
So this fiscal, not last
You're
fiscal?
looking at last year, so
Okay.
you would have received a bill.
So this is 2024 I'm looking at.
It would be as at March 31st, 2020.
So it's actually a 23-24 budget.
So you,
Okay.
so you won't, if you're paid, if you're all paid up, you won't receive a bill at the end of this fiscal.
Okay,
But you would be owing for up to.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And I just have two other questions and they may already be here. I'm not on the audit committee, so I may have other questions than what you may have already answered them for audit. The reserve accounts, do we have a schedule that shows what's in each account?
The schedule that would show the various reserves are in your financials, but you're asking whether or not within each balance there's designations? Is that what you're asking?
Well, not necessarily, just what is in each reserve account, like, so I know you talked about 2.52 in one of them, or a
So
little over two. Yeah,
in the statements, just after page 24, there's I guess it'd be page 25. There's just no page number on it.
okay,
There's a schedule of the reserves. And you'll see the 4 reserves you have and the balances that are there.
oh, the gas tax reserve, the special capital, the special operating?
Yeah.
Those ones, okay, perfect,
Mhm.
wonderful, all right, thank you. Did you find any, like, I went over, like, would you think this is a clean audit, in your opinion?
So our audit report is an unmodified report, which is a clean auditor's report. And it will be attached to your statements once approved by council this evening. Yeah.
So our internal controls are all good?
Yeah, I don't believe there were any significant deficiencies that we reported through the audit committee. If there was, it would be through our management letter. Bear with me for 1 second here. Yeah, so we do have a management letter that we would have reviewed, but they wouldn't be considered significant deficiencies. They were just matters of, actually, no, there were no matters that arose. We're just reporting there are no matters that arose during the year.
Good for me.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It's, I figure that we're moving along with confidence and Again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But with that, council, we're looking for a motion to accept.
Yeah, so if you, would you, if you would like to bump up the report pertaining to the audit to, we can do that. Because that's, or you can wait till reports. WSP as a presentation, whether, it's up to council's discretion.
WSP presentation, then keep moving along.
It's under staff reports.
Okay, with that, I believe, WSP is joining us. I hope that's right. Stephen?
Correct, yes, Stephen Pike.
Okay,
And Molly.
is Molly also? I see Molly's.
Molly's here as well, yeah.
Yeah, good evening both to both of you, and welcome.
Thank you.
We'll just, pass the chair over to you and your report, please.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councilors, Mark, and any other staff that might be attending. So my name is Stephen Pike. I'm with WSP Canada. Whereas we have an office in Dartmouth, I happen to reside in our Fredericton, New Brunswick office. Everyone, I assume, has had a chance to review our Phase 4 concept design report. What I'm going to do this evening, I've got 10 minutes to go through basically that report. If you're looking for the Coles Notes version, there's a one-page executive summary included at the front end of that report, and everything I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes is contained on that one sheet. Plan to talk about water treatability. Three things: water treatability, the overall water supply system, and probable costing. So those are the three main categories. So to start off, the water quality treatability, based on water quality information as received from the production well, which is identified as PW 2101. The water quality for the town of Stewiacke from that well has 6 main components or parameters that really need to be addressed in terms of treatment. Overall, the water is treatable, but it requires treatment to address those 6 items. And they are iron, manganese, sulfates, plus total dissolved solids, hardness, and turbidity. Those are the 6 items. They would be tackled in terms of providing treatment, 2 treatment processes, one following the other. The first is identified as a green sand technology. And what I should also explain, I don't want to get into too much technical detail or numbers, but we can always discuss those in the Q&A afterwards. The green sand filtration system is going to tackle or remove the iron, manganese, and sulfates. And that is done through a pressurized vessel system that removes those 3 components. In addition, that green sand filtration technology is also going to produce or have a requirement for backwash. So there's a need for a rinse cycle every so often, maybe once, twice a week, sort of that level of frequency. And it's going to produce a spent backwash, which is a waste stream. Following the green sand filtration, there is a need for a membrane filtration technology, also referred to as nanofiltration, and that will remove the total dissolved solids, turbidity, and the hardness. As a result of that type of technology, there is a reject waste stream that is produced. So it's a waste stream. And that, along with the spent backwash, represents sort of a waste stream that comes from this water treatment process. So even though we're treating the water, we're also producing a waste stream. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. In addition to those 2 main treatment processes, there's a requirement for the addition of various chemicals, usually at the front end and back end of each of those treatment processes, that will enable things like chlorination, dechlorination, rechlorination, lots of chlorination going on. And in addition to that, there are some things like anti-scaling and pH adjustment that is required throughout the treatment process. But safe to say that we've got two main treatment components: green sand, nanofiltration. Now, if we step back and we look at the overview of the overall water treatment, like do an overview of the overall water treatment supply system, the first component will be the production wells. We need a production well or wells that will produce raw water that will convey by pumping through to the water treatment plant that we just discussed. There's interconnecting piping that will take it from the wells to the water treatment plant. The water treatment plant itself, as I mentioned, is going to produce a treated water, which eventually gets stored on site and eventually gets pumped through another transmission main to a water storage water reservoir. And I had previously mentioned about the wastewater streams, the reject from the nanofiltration and the spent backwash from the green sand filters. They get collected. They also get collected on site, and they eventually have to be treated. Typically, that gets sent to a municipal wastewater treatment facility for treatment. Pumped water from that water treatment plant goes through a water distribution force main to a water storage tank. That water storage tank provides storage. It provides for use, obviously, for distribution into the community. It also can provide fire flow and emergency water use and maintenance purposes for flushing of water mains, etc. So that water storage tank would exist. Typically, you've got two of them currently in your community. So this new one, it's assumed there'd be a new one, would be positioned at an appropriate location in the community to provide sufficient storage. And from that storage tank, the water would then flow by gravity through to your existing distribution system and into your into the residential for residential use throughout the community. The last item I wanted to touch on is probable costing. In the report, there is a table that summarizes the costs for the overall treatment system. It's in table 4-1. And it summarizes the various components, including the well field, the production wells, and any associated equipment on that site, including the well control building or buildings. There is the need for a second well, not just the one well, but a second well, and it would also include that facility as well as a control building for it, if it's not positioned, depending on where it's positioned. The interconnecting piping that connects the wells to the water treatment plant, the water treatment plant itself, the treatment process components, the building that the treatment plant is located in, the clear well underground concrete storage to contain water for backwash purposes, for treated water purposes, and for containing the wastewater from the reject line, as well as the backwash, spent backwash. The need for the water storage water reservoir and the connecting pipe that takes it from the water treatment plant to the water storage reservoir. The need for process equipment installation. I've just broken them down here in this table to identify the overall cost components. There's a need for supervisory control and data acquisition. That's a fancy word for a control system that would link all of these components together and provide a computerized control for the operations staff, as well as collection of data for operational purposes. There's a need for electrical site power, and then an overall commissioning and startup of all of those processes and equipment. We've also included a price for the potential piloting of a water treatment process. And then a need for, or at least an allowance, I should say, for construction contingencies on that overall cost, as well as engineering, including preliminary engineering design, detailed engineering design, and the need for a contract administration, site inspection, startup and commissioning services. All of that, when added together, is that bottom line number of $20 million. That is based on, this is a Class D cost estimate, which is basically plus or minus 20 to 30%. And it is also based on a future design population of 5,100 people. And if I might just expand on that a little bit, the current population in the community is about 1,600 people, plus or minus. It's the town's desire to basically assume a doubling of that over the next 10 years to about 3,100 people. And then from years 11 to year 35, so this is the 35-year horizon population, there would be an average annual growth rate of assumed annual average growth rate of 2% to grow from 1,600 people to 5,100 people. So that is it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Around the table, start with Councilor Osborne.
I don't have any additional questions. I do want to thank you for answering all of my questions that I sent in. I don't know if it was you or Molly.
It was
or-
me, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Molly helped as well. Molly helped as well.
So, the only real question I had was about the storage, the concrete, the backwash storage facilities. Where would those be located? Like, are they near the treatment plant, or are they near the well, or?
Okay, so typically there is going to be a water treatment plant control building that's going to contain the water treatment plant processes. Inside that building, incorporated into the foundation, there would be typically an underground concrete tanks. So that inside the building, these underground tanks, and that's in those tanks is where the treated water, as it comes out of the treatment process train, gets deposited in there. And it gets, usually there's more than one tank. Typically there are 2, 3, maybe even 4 that are all linked together. And it's from that clean pot of water that the backwash is taken when needed, because that's what's used for backwashing. It's basically a rinse cycle for the green sand filters. And it's taken out of that treated water. And once it goes through the green sand filter, it gets redirected to another tank, which would be the dirty or spent backwash. It's a one-time use, goes through, and then that particular tank typically can be located outside of the building, but adjacent to the water treatment plant.
And that's the water that gets then filtered through the wastewater, is that right?
That's one option.
Did I
That's
follow that right?
yes, you did. Typically that water gets held in that tank, gets equalized because it comes out of the, it can come out of the backwash. The backwash can come out at a very high rate. You would not want to send that high rate onto the wastewater treatment plant. So you manage the hydraulics and you slow it down, store it in that tank, and then you slow release it over a longer period of time. So you get the same amount of volume discharge, but you do it over a longer period of time, so that it's not going to have as much of a hydraulic impact on your downstream process. And that downstream process is typically a municipal wastewater treatment plant. Although there are other options, but that is one option, is the municipal wastewater treatment plant.
And you say we need more than one well, correct?
Yes, and the reason for that is the Nova Scotia environment is going to require that. It's partly redundancy. So if you have a problem with one of your wells, and typically during the course of a year, you may have to take one of them out of service for general maintenance, preventive maintenance. While that is down, you've got the spare tire approach where you can flip to the other well. But typically throughout the year, both wells are engaged on an alternating basis. So you go to one well, it fills up, it's used for a period of time to fill up the water storage reservoir with treated water. And then once it stops, the next time another well comes on, usually alternate to the second well back and forth. So they get equal use typically throughout the year. But it's that redundancy that allows more flexibility for staff to be able to take one of those offline and still have capacity to continue to operate. You may need more than two. You may want more than two. It may be that you will want 3, or you can add to them in time, but a minimum of 2.
And would we still be able to draw from the river with the wells, or would that not be?
No.
Should we not be
Yeah,
doing that?
yeah, you either go to a groundwater source, which is a different type of water quality, and the
Right.
treatment that that would be necessary for the groundwater is completely different for the most part from what you currently have. So you would switch off of one and switch to the other.
Okay.
Councilor Roger Lane.
No, you had answered my question about the dirty water, I guess. That was the only thing I had, so I'm good for now.
Oh, the dirt, oh, is that the spent backwash, the dirty water?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Councilor-
That is, it's like I said, it's like the rinse cycle in a washing machine, in a way. You've got to send clean water through to what it's doing is it's over the course of time, the contaminants, iron, manganese, and sulfates, they end up precipitating out inside that green sand filter, and eventually they get clogged. Things slow down, and then it's a matter of rejuvenating that filter by backwashing it. So you then use that to invigorate the sand bed, flush out the contaminants. They get captured in that storage tank, and then you proceed with continuing to treat.
So I know little to nothing about water systems, and this all sounds quite complicated. But in your world, is this a difficult water source to try and treat, or is this routine?
Okay. Yes and no. The yes part is that the green sand filter component for removing iron and manganese and typically sulfates. Iron and manganese are a very common issue throughout the Maritimes, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick especially. In fact, one of the vendors of equipment brought their equipment to North America about 25, 30 years ago, and their beachhead for establishing that technology was in New Brunswick and eventually went into Nova Scotia. Fredericton, for example, has one of the largest iron and manganese removal facilities in North America. So it's a common problem, but the green sand filter technology is used throughout the Maritimes. Now, the not so common issue is the second stage. The water quality from PW 2101 in the town has an extremely high amount of dissolved solids, some turbidity, high amounts of turbidity, and hardness. These are at very high levels. It's not uncommon that you would see this stuff, but typically if you could avoid it, you would not go to that water. But given the fact that there's appears to be a fair amount of water in this aquifer, for the sake of adding a second treatment process, which is a membrane process, and it is used. It's not uncommon to use it, but in the Maritimes, it's not so common. But it is used throughout Canada, throughout North America. So it's a tried and true treatment process. It's just the additional treatment that is necessary to finish off your water quality and remove that hardness which is going to cause problems in fixtures, just coating up insides of pipes and clogging them up. The total dissolved solids are another issue. And then the last one, which was what was it? Total dissolved solids hardness and turbidity. So the membrane is a very, very tight, very, 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 very small pore size, and it's going to capture all of those components that it has to remove. In fact, there is also a need, because it removes almost all of the hardness, and that's something you do not want to do. So there is a need to have a small bypass stream around that second process to help introduce some hardness, so that you're managing the level of hardness. You're reducing it significantly, but not removing it entirely.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Chapman.
What size will the containers that hold the backwash, how big will they be, or how much water will they hold of the dirty water?
Of the dirty water, that has not been yet determined. That's a process design detail, but you'd be looking at as a minimum several hundred cubic meters of storage volume. But those are details that have not yet been worked out. But that really depends on how frequent the backwash is going to be, how much backwashing is going to be required for that particular water quality. The higher amounts of iron, manganese, and sulfates that you have in the raw water, the more they get removed in that filter, and therefore there's a need to perhaps more frequently backwash. The more frequent that you backwash, you're going to end up having greater volumes of backwash water. But it comes down to how it's managed. So it can be stored, but as you're storing it, it can be also at the same time being released, so that you are trying to bleed off a continuous flow from the treatment plant, the water treatment plant, into your wastewater treatment plant, or it would be initially going into your sanitary collection sewer system, blending with your wastewater and onto the wastewater treatment plant for treatment.
Thank you.
I have one question. You mentioned a Class B $20 million. You cover this population growth from 1,600 to 5,100. In previous discussions at WSP, we talked about not limiting ourselves to that Class B. Is there any red flags, or in your opinion, that we look at a Class C? And I don't mean to spend extra money, but if the population exceeds what the projections are, would it not be prudent to do it now and wait to 10 years, or can you make additions down the road, say 10 years from now, if that capacity and population increases?
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, you're talking about a Class D estimate. I may have missed that.
Yeah, your Class D was around 20 million.
Oh, yes. Okay. So the current level of estimating accuracy is based on a Class D. Okay. Throughout, as you progress through this project, there will be a need at a later stage, as you start to fine tune the design down, for a more refined, more accurate cost estimate. Definitely. To answer your question on capacity, these systems are typically designed as modular systems. Okay, you are trying to project out with a crystal ball as to what your population is going to be in 35 years, 50 years. And my experience has been that is a very difficult task to do. You make your best guess now, and with what you've got, and you design to that. But the system gets designed so that, let's just say, after 15 years, you're now at capacity. You never made it to the 35-year mark, only because you've attracted more population than you expected. So then you have a decision to make, whether or not you say, okay, we've got to our 5,100 people, plus or minus. We're satisfied with the size of the community, because there are other factors in the community that you may want to use to limit growth. You don't want to become, you may not want to become larger than 5,100 people. But if you decided you wanted to become larger than 5,100 people, then the system has the capability of adding on to it to reproduce those same treatment process trains in a modular format. But to do that, you have to design for that. And you also have to provide additional room so that you can expand the building. You've got room on that site to expand the building so that you can duplicate that process within inside that same building. So there are some factors in terms of strategizing how you design that system. And it may mean, in some cases, a little bit additional cost to give you that future flexibility. You can even take the system right now and not do 5,100 people. You could do 3,100 people and then expand to 5,100 people as well. So you have that flexibility. That's something that would await further discussion among council as to how you want to progress with capacity in the future.
Well, thank you. It's I think it's a factor. It's been floated around before, like not to limit yourself right now, but given the fact you can add the modules on, that's kind of I guess, an answer to that question.
Yeah, yeah. And the way the current concept, it's a concept at this stage, but the current concept is, for example, the green sand filter, we're assuming there that you've got 3 individual tanks. And any one time you can operate off of 2, with the third one being taken offline for backwashing purposes or for general maintenance. As well as the nanofiltration or the membrane second stage treatment process, it would consist of at least 2, perhaps even 3, but mainly 2 systems so that you have the ability to run water through one or the other, having the ability to take one offline for maintenance purposes. Everything requires maintenance. You've got to be able to shut things down without compromising your overall capability of continuing to produce water. Because everyone knows the day you take something offline is the day, oh, yeah, we also ran into one of our peak days during the year, but we've got that capability built in.
Great, thank you. Councilor Alphen was first and then Councilor Burrow, please.
Thank you very much. I want to say you're explaining things very, very well, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
I just have one question, and you answered it in my questions that I submitted to you, but if we can just kind of have it on the record for everyone. And it's regarding the PW 21-01 well, and it's regarding the water levels and the reaction of the well to the river. And you said and I'll let you just answer that if you don't mind. And just about the recovery and the fluctuation, and if there's any connectivity between the river and that well.
Right. I'm not a hydrogeologist. I'm a process engineer. So I'm now going to defer to Molly, and she will.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having us, and it's nice to see you. I recognize some faces as I've been here throughout this process. And so short answer is there's still some questions to be answered. So as you recall, we went through investigation first in 2019, and then we found this water supply. We moved to a test well and then a production well. The production well, the town went through in a proactive measure and did a 10-day test. That 10-day test was done for a reason, to evaluate the water quality, which is something that's being discussed here. As you may be aware, the geology in the region has been known for gypsum and things of the sort. And so we did a 10-day test at that time to see if there would be a potential degradation in water quality as the water started to move, as you started to draw from different areas within the juice box. Where we going to see, different changes? We actually saw a little bit of an improvement, so that was great. That 10-day test was also designed so that we would get additional data so that we could model the well field. And we could look at those sort of connections. Going through that process, there's still some ambiguity. And exactly like what you said, we're seeing some similarities between the wellhead elevation, so your well water level, and the water level of the St. Andrews River. But what really piqued the question, some may say unlucky, some may say lucky. When we did that 10-day test, it happened to be during a significant rainfall period that February. And we saw a typical, if you remember from some of the reports or some of the presentations, we pump water and we measure the well water level with time. So ideally what you would see is you would see the pump turn on, your water level is going to drop, and eventually you're going to meet a sustainable level where what we're taking out is the same as what the water's coming in, and it's going to flatline. During our 10-day test, we saw that water level flatline, but then with the rainfall, we saw it actually increase and then stabilize again once the rain stopped. And then a second rain period, we saw it increase and stabilize again. And so there's a few questions there as to whether it's considered a groundwater source or does have surface water connectivity. And that it doesn't jeopardize the integrity of the well. It would just classify the well into GOTW regulations, which is groundwater under direct influence. And so that would impact the regulation process as well as the potential treatment and maintenance of the well. And so WSP is in conversation with the town about doing a few tests and analysis of the data to make sure that we can confirm that it's not under influence, or if it is, and what that path looks like.
So should we be doing those tests in like summer months instead of in rainy months?
So that test, the connectivity, actually, the season, it's not so much a quantitative test. Those quantitative tests have been done. It was acknowledged that the quantitative test was done, not in the summer, but based on the integrity of the test and the information supported from other tests. At this time, it wasn't believed that you would have to do a redundancy of that test, acknowledging the fact that should the town move forward with a groundwater source in this location, there will need to be a redundant well. And so every test that goes under the permitting process needs to have an assessment done. So say we move forward and we put in the redundant or the second well, we would just recommend that the 72-hour, which is the minimum, test on the second well would be done during that summer season, just to support the facts finding. But these tests for connectivity would likely be forecasted and done in this fall, and isn't really so much focused on whether it's dry or wet. It's more of a short term. It's not a long-term duration testing. It's a couple days in the field.
Thank you.
Molly, was there any concern? I'm sorry, Councilor Kruger, you're next.
So, you know, when a person drills a well in their property, after you let it run for a while, it clears. So is it possible that some of our turbidity might dissipate after the well gets used? Or
and so that's
some problems?
The turbidity that we saw, we anticipate to be the consistent. So when we take those samples, over what's regulated is during a 72-hour test, you have to take a sample within the first hour, after 12 hours, and then near the end. So we actually took a host of 5 samples exceeding the minimum of 3. We saw a minimum or marginal improvement in turbidity, but we expect the turbidity that we've seen in these results to be the main, I guess, value that would happen. Because you are right. When you drill a well and you turn it on, it does flush, but generally that's what we would call development of a well. And we have the drillers and the installers do that sort of process prior to initiating these tests.
And one last question, and I'm not sure if this is the right time for it or not, but we've been using the 35 years and, you know, getting to 5,000 people. Would it be more appropriate to use 20 or 25 years? Because, well, we never know what's going to happen, but I don't know if that's
So I can speak to one side of it, and then Stephen step in for sure if I misspeak. So we've got a few different numbers floating around here. Of course, as the town moves to invest in an infrastructure system, and to design this, we want to look at the longevity, and we want to look at not repeating and duplicating work. And so that's where the 35 comes in. In terms of my world, the extraction and the water taking permitting, you're actually only allowed to permit projections and water taking approvals up to 10 years. So while our team is writing a permit for the 10-year extraction Stephen and the design team are making sure that once you hit that 10-year limit, if you need more, the infrastructure is already in place, and at that point, it's a matter of doing additional tests for NSE to show that the aquifer is sustainable.
All right, thank you.
I guess my question follows up a bit with Councilor Brindle's. In terms of the aquifer, I've been around here with you the last 3 years.
Yep.
Was there any significant drawdown with the existing aquifers and neighbors, neighboring aquifers that would affect wells that are adjacent to that area if this site went forward?
So when we did the testing, we had 3 observation wells. We had one up on Stratton Drive, I believe, 1925, and then we had one over closer to the golf course, and another at a residential property. We did see inconsistent results across them, in the fact that we were seeing similar drawdown into the well that was furthest away as to what we were seeing at the pumping well. And that's what we were looking and modeling in the groundwater model. All of the drawdown itself, so of the 12 meters of available head on the well, because I will remind you that this well is not super deep, and the aquifer that we're seeing is right at just below the interface between the overburden, or what we would call ground and clay, to the bedrock interface. That's about 30 meters below ground surface. There's 12 meters of available head, and after the 10 days of pumping, we saw less than a meter of drawdown at an aggressive pumping rate. We saw, I think, maybe somewhere between 70 to 80% of that elsewhere. And that is captured and looked at in the model, and will be captured and presented in the permitting approval to NSE. Yeah.
Any other questions, council? Okay, Stephen and Molly, both, thank you very much. Informative as usual, and I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. Thanks for having us.
Anything else you want to add to it before we conclude? Either Molly or Stephen, anything else you want to add before we
Just the last councillor's comment on, or question regarding the 20 years. In my world, 20 years comes along very quickly. We have a lot of municipalities that are scratching their heads saying, why didn't we design for a more longer period of time? Again, it's hard to crystal ball even out 20 years, but 20 years comes around very quickly, as does 35. And the infrastructure that you would be putting in the ground to solidify a future growth of your community needs to have flexibility and durability. And as much as you can try to predict what's going to happen in the future, you've got to build in that capability of at least reaching forward far enough that's that enables the community to not worry so much about having capacity, because 20 years will come around very quickly, and all of a sudden you're back at trying to reevaluate where you go. Although there is a need, as you go through the years, that you reassess at key locations just to make sure that your population growth is on target. Maybe it's never going to be exact. It's either going to be under or over, and you have to decide whether or not as you approach the 35-year mark and capacity, you say, okay, let's not wait till year 35 to decide what to do. Let's see how that's, maybe in 5 years prior to that, you start reevaluating, say, okay, maybe we need to design for the next 35-year period after that.
Thank you.
thank you.
And I would just add, I just appreciate the questions and the feedback and the interaction. We recognize that the water, investigation itself and the concept of water within your community is important, and it's great to see the level of engagement, but also the level of concern, because it is an important decision for the town. So keep the questions coming if you have them, and definitely, open dialogue for sure.
Great, thank you, good night.
Great, thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So we'll move number 8, written petitions and correspondence. We have none. I'll go to 9B, and that's the discussion of the combined council session for September 19th. 9A, standard for instance. Let's get that one. Page 2. We're going to go to page 9A. Not always. I had down in those spots, so don't mess on that. Okay, go back to 9A, so we got teamwork, back and forth, yes, Batman Row, thank you, your worship. First up, we've got the CAO report. Some general updates for council, staff continue to work on the municipal election. Within this report and package, note, the province has provided us with information about the upcoming council code of conduct. We're trying to make sure we're as transparent and upfront with council, so what the expectations are going to be from the provincial side. This will be coming into effect in the fall. The town and council will be required to adopt the code of conduct, and that will be required to be adopted for us to get any provincial funding. So we will, as staff, we will bring forward those reports. We'll make sure all the checks and balances are in place. We'll work through any procurement processes to get vendors of record, have integrity commissioners or anybody to review any complaints against the council code of conduct. So that information is in the package for council. It's also being provided to any candidates within the municipal election. So we're open and transparent with everyone. Second, I just want to make sure that we're all aware that anyone running in the municipal election, all candidates are asked to save the dates of November 4th and 5th in your calendars. Whether you're incumbent in the running or a new councillor potentially running for council, we're asking any candidates in the election to block down your calendars so that you're available for the training. Staff will make arrangements to have accommodations. That will be in Halifax in November. Just continuing with the election, this is an important issue right now for us. We'll continue to advertise, fulfilling all of our obligations within the MGA and our provincial requirements. We've got our returning officer here every Wednesday right now between the hours of 2 o'clock and 5 p.m. Am I off base with that? I saw a couple of eyebrows. Sorry, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. I'm getting my times mixed up. Thank you for the correction. So August the 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th. Anybody can come to town hall to talk to the returning election officer to make sure you're on the voters list. We're also noting that nominations are open, so there are packages for any potential candidates here at town hall. You can also get them by email by contacting returning officer. Just for the public record, the date for nominations is September the 10th. You must have your package submitted by 5 p.m. on nomination day. You must contact the returning officer for a meeting with her. Continuing this RCMP, there were no police matters reported between the last meeting and now. We did have a PAC meeting. It's important to note that tonight we're talking about the water issue, the WFP report, the former CBCL report. This is going to go to a public meeting in September, and we will talk about the council report that went forward. I believe it was the June 25th date, where we talked about potential options for development and looking at the water issue. So there'll be more information in the next week. The Riverside Drive project, we talked about the need for a temporary detour. Our public works staff are working with Dexter and Fire and EMS on detours. At the time we're in this report, I just wanted to note publicly that there was a water shut off on Monday night in town. I want to thank Mr. Sibley, our superintendent of public works, Dexter, all that team that did that quickly and efficiently to make sure that there were no major disruptions. I know Jeff had a heck of a morning on Tuesday, cleaning up a couple of water main issues, but our public works team really did a hang up job. So thank you on that. In terms of the recreation update, I just want to note that summer camps continue to be a success. We're seeing great numbers in that. Our recreation team, Aaron and Ben, are doing a great job, and our summer camp staff are doing that as well. I'm going to leave the town day update to Councillor Osborne during her update at the end. I just want to thank the committee, Aaron, Ben, our rec staff, our public works staff that helped out on town days, and all the committee members and members of the public that came out. I was lucky enough to get voluntold to be in the dunk tank and the trivia at Whistler, so it was a great event. Any questions? Okay.
Couple questions, couple of comments. Duncan was wonderful. Back to the election, nominations, it says here in your report, not between 9 and 4 on nomination day. Is it 9 and 4 or 9 and 5?
Yeah, so the original nomination advertisement that went out did say until 4 p.m.
Right.
Janet has corrected that and it will be till 5 p.m. So the
Okay,
new advertisement that's going out and being mailed out to every resident next week, it's going in Canada Post, will be till 5 p.m.
okay,
So the correction will be made.
okay. And what about advance poll dates, in-person dates? Have we nailed those down yet?
We're working on that, so we have more information on that in terms of location and dates.
But there will be advance poll in-person dates.
My understanding is yes, so
Okay.
Janet will have more information and will publicize those,
Okay. And are we gonna advertise on our town Facebook page?
of course.
Okay.
Yes, it'll be on everything pertaining to the election that we need to advertise is going to go in our social media account, our town website. And then if there's any parameters or requirements under the MGA and Election Act, we'll make sure that they get mailed out. But just like next week, when we're going to Canada Post, every house school will get a mailed advertisement.
And just on the RCMP matter, just, speeding and crosswalk safety has come up an awful lot. Speeding, I think, is continuously an issue. I know it's an issue on the number 2. I've witnessed it myself. As well as, within town limits as far as St. Andrew Street. We have. I don't know what we can do. I don't know how we can heighten the presence. I know after you had your meeting, there seemed to be some heightened presence and now it's dropped off again. So I'm just wondering if we can.
Yeah.
Try with school going in.
We will, I'll reach out to the RCMP to note those. I will, say for council that, with the upcoming, requirement of police advisory board, we will have a greater reach to the RCMP and a greater voice at the table. That police advisory board that we'll put together, we'll have the regular meetings, we'll be able to bring those, items up at those, but I'll continue to bring them forward. I had another online last week.
And are we still having a community meeting in September? with them?
Yes, we are. We just want to get through the summer months and we will plan for that. More than likely we'll get through September and the election and have it right after that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Seaman? Thank you, sir. Go to number 2. 23 audit consolidation financial statements. That's about it.
Yeah, so just thank you to Mr. Chason from MNP to Helen as well. The audit committee and former interim CEO Kevin Matson, who was on this audit. This all happened before I got here. The information received been very comprehensive. I think we will note that the water utility financial statements will come separately in a report in September. There were some notes in the draft that needed to be updated. So we'll have a separate report coming to council September meeting when we pick that date. The report in front of you basically speaks to the audited financial statements that Mr. Chason did a review over for you tonight. And the recommendation is that the audit 2023 audit consolidated financial statements report be received and that council approve the 2023 audit and consolidated financial statements.
Or after that motion, any questions or comments?
I'll ask you the same question that I asked the auditor and through you to Helen. Regarding our internal controls, do you believe that they're reasonable and height?
Yes, I had the same answer that Mr. Jason would, that Helen and I were new at the table. We've looked at all the financials. We can see no deviances from what's in the audited financial report. Everything is stable within the finances right now. Between Helen and myself, we are going to increase financial controls and processes and make improvements from an administrative level. Those are just general practices that are happening at the municipal table, and we're gonna work through those as a new staff.
Great, thanks.
And I will note as well one of the items you'll see, and for the public as well, that the template for the council reports has changed. So you're gonna see a financial section within each council report that's gonna speak to the budget line, general ledger numbers, the source of the financials, and we're gonna increase transparency on where the money's coming from. And then the audits will take care of making sure that all of the financials are correct. And then,
Thank you.
ask if Helen has any, no, you, anything to add to that?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mark.
I appreciate you, and I also like to add the move forward. Bring it to more transparency. It's speaks volumes to both of you in your work again, so I appreciate it. So I'm gonna ask for a motion, and I'm going to ask that we report individually each councillor's response for this motion, and also for the motion for the water infrastructure supply. So we'll ask for the motion, and then I'm gonna poll council individually and ask for your response. So,
Are you just talking about the audit statement right now?
read out this.
Okay.
So if consensus and the motion, that is,
I'll make a motion that we accept the 2023 audit of the financial statements for the town of Duriac for the budget year 2023-2024.
from Councilor Osborne, second, please. Second, Councilor Thorne. Step on the motion,
Question.
that was called, so I'm gonna pull Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Yes.
Councilor.
What he said. Yes.
Councilor Morgan, yes.
Yes.
Councilor Beckman, yes. Councilor Furman, yes. And Mayor Lloyd, yes. I'll take council. And back to you for town hall updates, please. And from the meeting. Okay, so the report in front of you regarding town hall upgrades is a recommendation from staff that we proceed with some upgrades to town hall. The report speaks to the fact that our resources within the current town hall structure need some updating. We have we're at capacity in terms of our finished office space. We have an opportunity to increase the longevity of this building by doing some cosmetic repairs to the current building that we're in. That would be the room directly adjacent to council chambers. The recommendation in front of you is to upgrade that area. Currently, town hall has no area for councilors to work, meet with the public, interact with staff. That's definitely something that's missing. And also, in terms of finished area for our staff to work at the capacity that we need to. This recommendation would address that. You'll see in the report that council a few years ago had the foresight to buy a property across the street where the old church was for potentially the conversation of building a new town hall. We're not there yet. The property is currently being used by the Big River Cafe as well as their great community garden. Conversations should continue into the fall and when we get to our strategic plan process as to what the future for staffing needs and the town administration will be and how we'll utilize that property. But for now, staff are recommending some upgrades to this area, increase the longevity, increase efficiency, access for the public and council at town hall. I'm happy to answer any questions.
How do we plan on making it more accessible?
Great question. So the building, unbeknownst to a lot of people, the building is actually accessible through the side door of the building. We actually have a stairwell that comes up the back through the center. We actually have a chairlift in that stairwell. It was inspected on, I believe it, how many, Craig, was it Monday this week? We had our annual inspection. It's fully functional, ready to go. We've got some work to do because there was a bulkhead constructed in this back room. I'm not sure why. So when you open the door does not open fully. We can get people up to the second stair. We've addressed that as part of this project to make sure that we'd be able to have accessibility up here. You know, the Accessibility Standards Act is coming our way. And that would allow us to be compliant if we do the basic upgrades to get people up and down the stairs.
So I have a question, and it's about the line item. You say you want to take money from here to there. But how do we do that? Like, because isn't one in the water utility and one in the general operating?
The line item is in general operating.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
That, so so the grant that we received, is that in general operating or is that in?
That's in the water utility.
Okay, so did I
So if I could add some clarity, we received a grant after the budget was approved, so we had
Yeah.
$50,000 approved in the operating budget, which we now don't need. We then got a grant to cover the wastewater investigation.
So
So we now have
Oh,
$50,000,
okay.
so we're recommending to take that 50,
okay,
move 30
Okay,
in, so it's
yeah,
going back
yeah.
on the budget.
Yeah.
And then the next report, we'll use the other 20 potentially to, if council approves, to put it towards the requirement to test the groundwater on the well on St. Pedro.
okay, all right, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. As far as renovating the other properties, did you want a discussion on that tonight? Or did you want to defer that and only look at renovating up here and extending the life up here?
I think the recommendation is to look at the longevity of this building and recommend the recommendation to proceed with this. I don't think we're at the point where we have a plan for the future and our needs, and we haven't had time to assess the public works building, what the longevity of that is, what the requirements of that. So I would recommend we look at that in the fall and come forward with a portion of our strategic plan that would talk to your recommendation for the future.
Any other questions, Councilor, before I ask the motion? Okay, let's go back to a regular motion. We follow this as per usual, so I'll ask for that motion first.
I'll make that motion that we proceed with the basic upgrades of the existing town hall building and that council approve $30,000 in, is it an additional or just 30,000? Yeah,
30,
approve $30,000 in the 2024 operational budget to complete the necessary work.
Let's move by Councilor Osborne, a second, please.
That's a good
Second by Deputy Mayor Chapman, discussion on the motion.
question.
Question has been called, all in favor? Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Council. Move into the fourth, not a four. That's the town of Stuart Water Infrastructure and Supply. I'll pass that back to you. Also to yes.
So, thank you. This speaks to the presentation that we had from WSP Engineering earlier tonight. I just want to acknowledge Mr. Sibley, our Superintendent of Public Works, is here. He's our expert in the town on our current water operation. The current plans, and we've been just been at the table for many of these studies that have happened before I've been here. Mr. Matheson and I believe the former CAO, the Brown was involved as well. So tonight we're looking at the potential approval from council to move forward. So we're looking at the town of Stewiacke Water Infrastructure Supply Report that we received. We've had WSP come in tonight to give you an overview of that report. We ensured that it was released in ample time to get questions. We're looking at council to authorize the CEO to sign a change order with WSP Engineering for $40,140 plus HST for the completion of the source analysis for phase 4 of the town's groundwater assessment to identify the potential origin of groundwater supply, supplying the new well PW 2101 as identified in the WSP. I got a typo there, my apologies. WSP report. Phase 4 concept design revision 2, and that council directs staff to enter discussions with the property owner of 378 St. Andrew Street for the purposes of acquiring the land required to take water and build the town's future water production and treatment facility. And that staff report back to council. The last portion of that recommendation might raise some questions, but the investigation noted in the change order in the 40,140. Molly spoke to that and the need for testing the groundwater coming from that well. to ensure that the quality and the source water is there to supply our population. So in the background, we've been having conversations potentially with the landowner that owns the well or the land where the well is currently housed to see if the potential is there to acquire a portion of that land to fulfill the new required facility. With this report, you'll see that we ensured that we consulted with the Nova Scotia Department of Environment to ensure that we got all of the questions answered pertaining to continuing to draw water from the St. Andrews River or defer to a well or aquifer source. If council has any questions pertaining to the report, myself, Mr. Sibley, are happy to assist.
All go around the table. We'll start to my right, Councilor Osborne.
Couple of questions. I'll go back to that last portion that you said we would probably have questions on, because I'm sure most of us have questions on that. But there is a letter that the Minister of Environment sent to Councillor Lutz that I believe was sent to the CAO as well, which did say that we could draw from the river. I understand from WSP about the well. My concern is we only have one well, and he's saying we need 2 wells, if not 3 wells. So where would we find those other wells? So I guess I want to make sure that we continue to spend wisely and prudently and not spend just because we need to. I think we need to really really drill down on this. Because if, in fact, we do need another well, where is that coming from? Like, do we know? Is it on the same property? Will we have to go to another person's property? Like, do we know any of that?
That's a great question. Jeff might be able to help me on that. My understanding is that we can drill a second well on the property.
Yes,
Wasn't Niners.
the second well would be on the same property.
And it would have
cost of
the same-
well is very insignificant to the total cost of the project. It's like using the last one, I think it's $50,000 to drill.
And I know nothing about it, but would it have the same supply as the well beside it?
Same aquifer, yeah.
Okay.
Or we would be in the same aquifer anywhere as we drill upon.
Within that?
Yeah.
It's all
Okay.
the same.
We just need to have 2 wells so that if one's down, one's still operational.
Mr. Sibley, if I can ask a question, to you. My understanding was in 2019, the Nova Scotia Environment directed that the town of Stewiacke was not able to meet the EMF flow for that season. And that we should look at a different water source. Is that correct?
When we were issued our last approval to operate, they only gave us 5 years because they want us to look at these wells. They want us to get away from the river.
And that's a ecological maintenance for the EMF. And that's what myself and Shane have been talking about while we're looking at this source compared to the river. Because we've been discussing back and forth and trying to solidify why we went to that point. That was 2019, right?
2018 or 19, there's been the last approval, I think it started in 18.
Okay.
So for council's information, you look at the report, in 2018, the approval requirement changed. We talked about the ecological maintenance flow. So in order to look in depth at this report, yes, there was a letter from Councilor Lutz to the minister. We had already as staff gone directly to the NS Department of Environment, and we talked directly to staff. You'll see the consultations in the report. Angelina Poligato, she's a drinking water specialist. Jennifer McDonald, a hydrologist. Kelly McNally, environment officer. They are staff members of the minister in question. They were the ones that provided the information. We see in the report, when we started the new requirements in 2018, the EMF levels, we could not meet them for 62 days in 2018, 62 days again in 2019, 105 days in 2020. 2021 was a very rainy year. We did not have any days below the EMF. In 2022, we had 56 days below EMF. 2023, we had 6 days below EMF, and already in 2024, we had 11 days below EMF. In addition to that, you'll see on the report on page 6, there's 3 reasons why we moved away from drawings river water from St. Andrews. One was the aging infrastructure of the St. Andrews plant. New water treatment infrastructure is required. Number 2 was to focus on planning on getting away from the ecological maintenance flow limitations placed on the town by utilizing the river as its water source. And focus, planning to get away from the sedimentation challenges, including turbidity and color challenges that are increasing with increased rainfall events that exist based on drawing the town's water source in the river. I think Jeff would attribute the fact that it looks like chocolate milk when it rains, and it's quite complex to treat. We were aware of these questions. We did our due diligence. We went directly to the NS Department of Environment to get the answers, and we believe from staff perspective, we're pointing council towards the right next step in our exploration for the next town water source.
So the only reason I raised that issue is that letter is fairly new, and I guess I was hoping that all of council would receive a copy of that letter so that everyone would have that information directly from the minister's office. I spoke to the minister as well earlier. I said that openly at this table. I'm certainly not contradicting anything that you've got in your report. It's just about having open communication and transparency, and I have a copy of the letter because Councillor Luke sent it to me. I know you have a copy of the letter. I just thought everyone else should have one as well. As far as the turbidity, I guess now we're looking at a well that has even more so than the river. As far as drawing another well on the same aquifer, how is that going to increase our capacity that we need for the 35-year yield? If the one well is not sufficient from that aquifer and we're drawing, then having 2 wells off in the same aquifer, would that not decrease? Just in my common sense world, if you're having 2 wells on one
But would you not
aquifer?
run one well and then the other? Is that not how it would work?
Yes, so generally they alternate. Also, they can pump together. So the drawdown was not significant, so 2 pumps could pump at the same time. If needed be.
So is another reason to move in this way is, we're having low flows or whatever we're going below the levels that we're supposed to. And as our population increases, obviously, I guess, that's just gonna get worse.
It is, and the biggest problem is that we're operating a pilot project plant, 30 years old. It was a pilot project, it was not like a design.
Yeah.
And the numbers that were used for her available water are not realistic. I don't know what I saw the questions from one of the residents saying that there was the plant could produce 2 million liters a day. We have trouble doing 500,000. So what it might be able to pump it, but it would never meet the guidelines.
Yeah.
So it'd be boiler all the time.
So on that same lines, Shirley,
That's why.
your palatable water, are you reaching capacity for treating that in terms of treating that to put it out?
With the current, the treatment plant we have now, we can't put the water through it fast enough to keep up to the daily demands. We lose every day we drop.
As of now.
We lose ground and then it fills back overnight.
Yeah.
But when if we get a leak or we get people heavy usage, we struggle.
So that increase this year compared to other years?
Well, this year it did a little bit because we had some construction and we had a leak we couldn't find and we were pretty critical here this summer, but.
The questions I asked.
We're back caught up again now, but.
So with that as an aside, and then maybe this isn't a topic for tonight, but I know in reading some of this. There's a comment about underwriters in the fire department, and is there another way to like if there were a fire, other than using the waters in the tanks, towers, whatever, is there another way we could like have a source of water for the fire department?
Well, as a member of the fire department, we've always looked at that. Not just from the town side, from the fire department side, like to draw water from ponds. Wherever we thought we put dry hydrants in places, but mostly now with all of our surrounding firefighter services, like communities. Everybody shows up. If you have a chimney fire, you get 15 fire trucks showing up now, pretty much. So you got lots of water to hit it on demand, so you have lots of time to find a source, so you're not depleting the town's water supply.
Cause they all come filled, their trucks are
Yes.
filled with water,
Yes.
but are they?
So immediately they'll hook up. And but if it's gonna be a huge load on the town, they would find a source somewhere else at a pond and they would start trucking water. But there's always lots of trucks now, at this day and age, when the pager goes off, all the surrounding departments get called.
So in your opinion, this is the way to go, what we're,
The biggest problem with the St. Andrew River is, it's not just the maintenance flow. The plant itself is too small now. The infiltration gallery in the river, that was put in 1969, so we're already having issues with that, and there's no way we could ever pull much more water through that than we are right now, because it's, over the years, I suppose, it's just compacted, or the perforations are not what they were, but you could never pull near the demand through that pipe. Because even now, when we do it, we see so usually the level in our, we call it the wet well in the plant, stays the same level as what's in the river, because it's just, that's whatever levels there is. But when we turn the pumps on now, we draw the well down lower than the river because it can't get through the gallery fast enough. So, but when we pump, the pump's only on through the treatment plant a short time, they shut off. And then off, on, so as they go off and on. When it basically goes off on, and it kind of goes down all day long, but as we fill out. They'll come back, we'll go back up, but it's our finished water that we can't make enough of fast enough. Because of all the restrictions in the river, and the turbidity is huge, like. When it rains, everybody thinks, oh, it rained, we should have lots of water, that's the worst time, because now we have to slow the flow down so slow inside the plant in order to meet the guidelines. That we have to lower the levels of the towers in order to just maintain a flow, let alone their normal flows.
thank you.
So if I can ask about the turbidity in particular, is the well higher in turbidity than the river? No.
I heard it's way worse.
Okay. Because I have been down to the water plant, as you know, and I've seen the chocolate milk that you talk about.
So turbidity and rivers.
Okay.
That gets too about telling me to get 31 years, so I find a balance between speaking and hearing and falling asleep, so. Any other questions or comments before I ask the motion?
If I can just answer the second part about the letter from the minister.
Yeah.
Just so council's aware, staff were not aware that the minister had been contacted. It was done without consultation with staff. The letter that's received by the counselor directs us to go back and talk to staff. You'll see in the report, we did do our due diligence and talk with staff that the minister was directing us back to. So the letter, yes, it's received, we're not aware, but we've done our due diligence as part of this report.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion.
Actually, I'd like to discuss the other portion of this report, which is regarding the property of three.
I guess we look at it as one motion.
Yeah, so, you're right, I've got some questions on that, because what happens if the well's not viable? So are we looking at just asking for permission to go and do the testing right now and
Yeah.
only that?
Yeah. So we know the well's there, we have to explore it, so you'll see in the report, we're required to sign a change order to do the testing to make sure the source water is adequate and safe. So the request from council executives to proceed with that adequate testing. We'll also explore the possibility of acquiring some of that land from the landlord if the testing comes back positive. We will not proceed if the testing comes back in negative fashion. We will report back to council. So you see the recommendation is written in a way that authorized to go and speak to the landlord, bring the possibilities of acquiring that land, report back to council. That would be completely contingent on doing our due diligence regarding the water testing, make sure it's safe and adequate to meet our needs for our population.
Sorry, I'm feverishly looking for your motion on that. Oh, way at the back. Okay, got it. So you say for the purpose of acquiring the land, so should we be at that stage right now, or?
The recommendation is to enter discussions. So we are entering discussions pertaining to acquiring land. What would it take if we so choose to, pursue that land, to take water from for our future water source? It does not tie council to anything. It does allow us to do the due diligence and the testing and report back. And that's it. It does not tie us, and it just gives staff authorization to start the conversations. Any more questions? No, Councilor Roger, like anything.
There we
Had
go.
a long day.
It says on final groundwater withdrawal application submitted to NSECC, and I think Molly talked about that too. That she submits her findings to somebody. Does she do that as soon as her findings are found? Or is it, I guess, if it's submitted to whoever that party is? Does that bind us to anything? Like, does,
I can't speak to the process. That's part of WSP's expertise.
like, do they, I guess, do
This
they
doesn't
have
bind
to
us to
submit
anything.
it? Okay,
We need to do our due diligence to proceed with this testing. Because we're at that stage. If it comes back and it's positive,
Mhm.
we then have that next conversation about acquiring the land.
Right, I guess my fear is that submitting it, and Jeff had his hands up, so he can probably speak more to it. Is that now the higher powers are going to say you have a viable water option, so you need to do that within the next. You can't draw from the river within the next 5 years, because now we know that you have something.
As long as the town is moving forward, basically, this is what we told me in 2018 when I did the last application. They know that we're looking, they know we're exploring our options, so, and well, that's drilled. What she's looking at is to see if it's under the directive things of the character. So if it is, it just means there's other applications that will have to go with it. So that's what this was telling us too. I also want to mention that we pumped that well, 450 gallons a minute for 10 days, 24 hours a day, about 30 inches. We only pump 120 gallons a minute for a couple hours at a time. Like now, so. Well, it's got way over yield. I know what their numbers are saying, but they're saying 5,100. I've been here almost 30 years, and the population is about 500. So I don't know what, if we get to a certain point where it automatically doubles, but I don't see that extreme that time. But that's the engineers and their numbers.
Is the motion required? The wording that's here,
Yes, it's
the 3 paragraphs.
all 4 recommendations.
I think prepared to make that motion already.
Right, so moved by Councilor Thurman,
I move that the town of Seac water infrastructure supply report be received. and that council confirm receipt of phase 4 concept design report revision 02 as supplied by WPS Engineering. And that council authorizes CAO to sign a change order with WSP Engineering for $40,140 plus HST for the completion of a source analysis for the phase 4 of the town's groundwater assessment to identify the potential origin of the groundwater supply in the new well, PW 21-01, as identified in the WPS phase 4 concept design report review 2, and the council directs staff to enter discussions with the property owner at 378 St. Andrews Street for the purposes of acquiring the land required to take water and build the town's future water production and treatment facility, and that staff report back to council.
Moved by Councilor Pillen, seconded please. Second, Deputy Mayor. Kevin. Discussion on motion.
I have a question.
Question passed.
I have two questions, actually. So just for clarification, this is not to purchase the land right now. This is only to discuss future possibilities of acquiring the land.
Discuss the details of what we're required to obtain and report back to council.
So it's not to do a purchase and sale agreement. Okay,
Anybody else in discussion? So again, the full council one at a time. The vote, Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Yes.
Councilor Osborne.
yes,
Councilor Washington.
Yes.
Councilor Brown. Myself, Mayor Moore, yes. Thank you, Councilor. Now we'll move to item B. Chair Feldman. That's the combined council session being moved. Our council session moved to a combined council session for September 19th, 2024. But any comments before I ask the motion?
That would interfere with bylaw policy, but perhaps we can find another meeting. I can't not have Councilor Rogers laying at another meeting. Yeah. You'll be here.
With that noted. Got a motion, please.
I'll make that motion that we have a combined session for September the 19th, 2024, starting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. That was moved by Councilor Osborne, the second place. Second one, discussion on motion.
First question.
All in favor? Opposed? So moved. There's nothing brought forward for bylaw and policies. We're gonna look at it for citizen comments. We have one individual in the gallery. I'll ask you again to check. City place.
No comments in the chat or hands raised.
Can I ask how many people are left?
Oh, there's a Q&A. There's a Q&A there.
Meeting this new development of Harrison. We did not address anything Harrison, so.
Okay, with that, and move into reports. Mine is brief. July 26th, we met with Ash Gregor of the Penn Group. July 31st, I attended the Royal Sullivan announcement we built in Nova Scotia. From the 1st to the 5th, I'm privileged to be part of, I've heard the best parade ever for town days. People just taking a note by it. So kudos to all the staff, council, volunteers that worked very, very hard. Like our CEO, I was voluntold for the film tank a few times. I think my grandchildren are part of that. It was a wonderful event. There's a lot of hard work, and it was nice to see the small faces, and we had our over MLA, Barry Harrison, and our MP, Dr. Ellis, joined that parade, so it was nice to see them here. I received a nice letter or card from Life Point Church, thanking me for my service as mayor. It's my privilege, obviously, to have that, and I thank them for that. Continue weekly meetings with Mr. again, and almost daily meetings now, I guess. We're quite busy. Yeah, thank you, Mark, for bringing more transparency to the table and more information for us to make decisions on. It's important. And with that, I'll pass over to the Mayor Chapman.
My report is very brief. The town days this year was a bomb. It was wonderful. Everything. The park, the parade, the concert, the ball tournament. Also, shout out to Reverend Dawn Dunn for sending a card to all council, and that's very much appreciated. It's not a job we often get. Thank you. That was really nice. Appreciate it. And I attended the service that Sunday morning, and apparently it's looking very nice.
Thank you. Also.
Just, we held our wrap-up meeting on Tuesday night for Town Days, looked at some bring forwards for next year, items of interest. The antique cars will be happening again next year for sure. I want to thank the committee. It was an amazing group of people. Every Tuesday night, people, gave that evening up week after week. We've got a couple of main members here. Town Days was phenomenal. Everybody was happy, except for a few people that we had to turn around because of the break. But I thought it went well. Thank you both to the mayor and our CAO for being dumped. It was a great fun. I think everyone enjoyed the touch a truck and the history again in the community center, and I want to thank Councillor Krillman and Deputy Mayor Chapman for looking after that. And I love Town Days. This is my home, and it's the weekend I always enjoy. Everybody seems to be happy and having a few laughs with their family and friends, and many people come home for that weekend every year. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that was on the committee again, and thank you to the public and for the people participating, because that's who makes the weekend. If the public do not come out to participate, all our planning is for naught. So I just want to thank everybody again. And the weather was phenomenal. So
Cooperated this year.
it certainly did.
Councilor.
I'll echo everyone else, and it was a great time of days. Sorry,
Your little plaque.
I have my plaque to hang beside my Christmas plaque. The parade, we have a lot of fun. Our street entering a float, and every year kids love it. Yeah. Yeah, great weekend. So thanks to everyone involved.
And kudos again, I'll echo them as well. What a town was quite remarkable. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to make a shout out to our staff. I know a lot are involved with Town Days, and I know the issues that we're dealing with take a lot of work and a lot of time. So thank you.
And I think I echo that, it's very hard out here to have these days, the chemicals that come out of water. So it's a lot of work to do that. I'll want to shower, take care of it. So I don't have any hair, so. Yeah.
You're supposed to be on ten.
That's what it is. We're going to move into an in-camera session, so I'll ask if this one's to please leave. And, thank you for coming. It just says participants, it does not say.
Doesn't list who they are.
Thank you.
Come again.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Drive safe.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want a motion to go in?
Not sure.